look, we know that there will be a new Fed chair in May, and we know whoever's appointed is going to be cutting rates, maybe 200 bips, maybe not. But so knowing that, would you expect the market to even react to that in early Q1, knowing that that is coming? Now there's, I think, 1 or 2 rate cuts potentially this year, according to Polymarket. Maybe that's true or not, but we know we're going to get something significant in May. I think that's hard to dispute. So does that already help markets, or do we have to wait?
I mean, people are, so I think what's really interesting is that people have been very optimistic about things. So at the end of the day, given everything that's happening historically, and I think this is fascinating to see, historically, people would have been a lot more bearish, but right now, because we've become so desensitized to sort of the sensationalism of it all, right? The fact that the stock market's still doing okay, the fact that Bitcoin's over 100,000, the fact that crypto is over 3 trillion as an overall market asset, is actually pretty insane, right? And it does say something about human resilience, but it also says something about our hope that things are going to get better, right? And so I think there's going to be more disappointment if maybe, and I don't know what that number is, if when the Fed does cut their rates in the future, that it's not hitting the number they expected, right? They go, oh my goodness, this wasn't as good as I hoped. Boom, 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 right? As opposed to, do people expect the Fed to cut rates? I think a lot of people are already baking that in one form or the other. Whether it's short to midterm or long term, they're already sort of baking that in their perspective. Many of them making assumptions like the US can't support this kind of debt. They have to figure out ways to do this. It's just that essentially, I think, the sensitivity to that is different. So the markets are actually much more resilient, I would say, than one would expect given everything, between the tariffs and the activities that's been taking place. Yeah. Maybe to the detriment or the chagrin of the people who've been trying to sort of shake up the markets despite their best efforts.
Tell that to the altcoin holders that the markets have been resilient because they're crying.
Well, I think the reason they're crying is because they look at Bitcoin.
Okay.
I think it's a relative game. I mean, let's not forget where we were in 23 and in late 22.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we could sit here.
And this is a man who owns a lot of altcoins.
Yes, exactly. I mean, so
I listen when you talk.
Yeah. I mean, Ethereum was I think 1,000 or maybe briefly hit broke below 1,000, for instance, right? And sure, we've had, go with 2,800. Now it's like a 21 or 2,200 or something like that, right? So when you compare it to Bitcoin, you go, oh my goodness, right? And that's kind of where you compare it. Well, when you compare it to any other type of asset over the last, of a very popular asset class, it's up, 2.5, 3 times. That's not crazy. It certainly beat inflation and it's certainly not bad, right? And if you were playing in the market and you were active in different activities, then you would have done okay too. But what you can't do is, I think, just keep 1 or 2 assets and say that's it. If you want to just really sit back and just sort of hold one asset, then I think Bitcoin's the one to do, where you basically want to sit there rather passively because it was the one that had the first major institutional adoption. Okay. But if you're playing the altcoin market, I think you have to play it differently. I don't think you can say, I'm just going to buy Solana and Ethereum and just sit on that, right? So for instance, when we got into TON, it was below $1, right? And yeah, at its peak, $7. And now it's like 3.5 to 4 or wherever that sits. Like, we're not crying. Just be clear about this, right? But one would cry if you were making comparisons. And as humans, we're very comparative creatures, right? We don't just compare against sort of, prices, and we compare to other people's success. Oh, he moved into this apartment in Mayfair. Oh, look, this guy bought this new car. It's just a very normal thing for us to do. And of course, in crypto, if you're not in Bitcoin, or if you're more in altcoins, you look at Bitcoin and you go, oh my goodness, it's not done so well, right? But I would say you're a much happier man if you basically count your blessings where you are, the fact that you've had winnings.
Investment Club. Today, I consider it the best investment that I've ever made. We get 4 projects presented a week by their associated CEOs. Personally, I'm completely blown away by the quality of these projects, and I know of nowhere else where I would be given this same opportunity. Each week that passes, I feel more appreciative of the fact that I'm a member of this group. The vibe was just tremendous. Everybody's on the same wavelength. We just clicked. Everybody listened to each other, enjoyed their company. It was just magical, magical. Take action. Don't take my word for it. Due diligence you need to do. And I really hope that someday down the road I see you in the club. It far exceeded expectations, without question.
compared to most people in the world in this kind of volatile environment, because in the macro space, you've done well. Could you do it better? Yes. I do think, for instance, things like AI agents are going to be better at the stuff, for instance. Like, for instance, if you want to play, in the altcoin space, you're not going to just buy one token. You probably have to manage an index of 50 or 100 tokens. How do you do that yourself? This is where an AI agent comes into play. Or this is maybe where you start diversifying into things like, funds or people that you trust that can do this, for instance. Or you invest in projects you have long-term conviction. I like to personally look at projects where I have long-term convictions, like the Cross the Ages example, for instance, or Mochaverse, right?
Yeah.
These are things where you have a vision around that. You think it's going to do well. You might be wrong, but at least you've backed something positive as well. And if you're correct about this, then you will do far, far better than if you basically are just trying to sort of day trade, right? And we shouldn't forget that the vast majority of people in altcoins versus Bitcoin are day traders, right? Because they're there to trade in activity. And while they are important in the market, right, they are not the ones that they're not the only part of that market, right? So as we bring more people into the space, you want people to have long-term conviction to hold, right? And so my challenge to the altcoin guys out there is that if you want to build a product that has staying power, then you need to build an audience that has staying power. In other words, don't just attract the Web3 degens. Don't just go for the people who want to trade your token. They're important. Go for the people who hold your tokens. Bring in new people into the audiences, which is why gaming is still important, because that's where you bring new people into the space, for instance, right? The fact that I can, the fact that you own tokens in an exchange is great, but there's only one thing you can do in exchange. It's to trade. That user is going to basically speculate on your item. And then you're complaining that they're speculating? So you have to basically make sure that you have both sides of these audiences. And if you look at the bright projects, for instance, whether it's Ton or for example, Mochaverse, right? When we did our public sale, it was like a 250 or 350 million valuation, right? At its peak, it was 2 billion. Right now, it's sitting around 700 million. Not bad, right? Telegram as well, right? You were able to get it on market at below $1, sitting at 3 to 4, right? If you got it across the ages, basically in the last 6 months, you would have done fine, right? There's countless other examples of successful altcoins. I think you just need to look at the project, study them, do your research. That's the other thing. So many people are just listening to what some person says and making the investment. No, do the work, look at the background, see who's backing it, see who's talking about it. Don't just sort of go into something you don't fully understand. And I think that's the other big message, right? If you're going to invest in a token, meme coins aren't dead, but the narrative around a meme coin is no longer going to be the thing you should be investing in the same way. Because remember, meme coins were an answer to a regulatory sort of scenario the US had. If I'm launching a token and I'm telling you no utility, it's a waste of time, don't take it serious, right. It's a joke.
Then it's legal.
Right?
Right.
So you're by definition creating a framework where you've created a bit of a joke, right? When many of them were secretly trying to build utility. This is different now. You go out and you see the project. Who's not just talking about the utility? What are they building? How are they communicating? Is it a real team? Who's behind it? No different than when you're going to invest in a company anywhere in the world. And this is now able to be the case because with this regulatory sort of new regime, you now have the ability to essentially advertise a utility that you couldn't do before.
Okay. So if I'm reading all those tea leaves, alt season starts in Q4, according to Yat Siu.
Yep. Let's go for it. Q4.
Okay,
yes, exactly.
Q4. Yes. All right.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.